Builder. Today we're going to talk about my top 5 features that make the GH5 and GH5s an absolute value for your productions. 1. Waveform monitor. Helps you get a quick idea of what your camera is seeing in terms of light values in your shadows, mids, and highlights. 2. Vectorscopes. Helping you understand what your camera is seeing in terms of color and saturations. Perfect for crafting unique looks on set with bicolor LEDs and RGBW LEDs. 3. Focus transitions. Set 3 predetermined focus points with your native Micro Four Thirds lenses so you never miss a rack focus again. 4. Custom memory camera settings. If you shoot in the same 3 locations with 3 different lighting setups, you can actually set up your camera to memorize your settings so that all you have to do is rotate the dial and never have to manually set your camera again. 5. Anamorphic and open gate mode. Being able to shoot with 2x anamorphic lenses is easier than ever, minus the price of the glass. Open gate mode allows you to have more resolution to work with, especially handy with green screen work. Side note, the open gate resolution for the GH5s is not as high as the GH5 due to the megapixel count of its sensor. Done, roll that intro. What's up everybody, you're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we are constantly and always still learning. So ever since I transitioned from the Canon T3i to the Panasonic GH4, basically Panasonic just has me hook, line, and sinker. I am probably going to be using the Panasonic GH series of cameras for a good chunk of my independent film career. Now, when the GH5 was first announced, it is actually the first camera I went and pre-ordered it right on the spot because it had some amazing features that they were bringing. Now, there are actually some more additional features that make the GH5 and the GH5s an absolute steal in terms of what it can do for your film productions. So without further ado, today I'm going to go over the top 5 features that make this camera an absolute workhorse, and also that you need to know that these features exist because it might actually advance your film productions. All right, so let's get started. All right, the first feature that you need to know about is the waveform monitor. Now, at its basic level, the waveform monitor is basically giving you a representation of what the camera is registering the light values going towards the sensor. So you can have a quick idea if something is too dark, if something is too bright, and if you're doing close-up shots, then you can really try to figure out, you know, what's the light value here of the light and what's the light value here of the shadow and the highlights in the back. Speaking of color, the next feature you need to know about is the Vectorscope. Now, Vectorscope at its most basic idea is it's giving you an idea of what the sensor sees in terms of colors. So what colors does it see and how saturated are those colors based on your camera settings or based on the object itself. Now, this is truly exciting that you have an idea of what the camera is seeing, because with the rise of bicolored LEDs and RGBW LEDs, manufacturers are really trying to perfect this technology for filmmakers. So gone are the days of you having to use a bunch of gels to change the color of your scene. That takes a long time. So with the Vectorscope, what you can do is if you have a clear idea of what you want to do to the background, to the subject in terms of color to make it look like a very artsy film, or maybe just like a, you know, that Blade Runner look, whatever what have you. If you know how to read the Vectorscope, then you can start influencing what you're doing to those RGBW LEDs to craft the overall look. And basically, if you do it this way, you don't really have to spend a whole lot of time in color grading to do a whole bunch of stuff. Probably in color grading, you're probably just going to be changing around the saturation values and therefore limiting your time in post-production. All right, the third feature that you need to know about is the focus transition feature. So basically what this feature does, it allows you to tell the GH5 3 focus points, and basically you're going to be able to rack focus between the 3 in any order that you want with pinpoint accuracy, and you can actually choose how fast or how slow you want it to transition between any of those points. Now this is awesome because if you're a director that really works with actors in terms of blocking them, we all know that racking focus can be tedious because if you're the cameraman doing it yourself, you could bump the camera a little bit, or if you have someone with a whip or a crank lever or what have you, that could also move the camera a little bit. And And then of course, if you want to do it wirelessly, that costs money and you have to rig it up. So with this feature, it's awesome because now the cameraman can do it himself without having to fuss around and moving the lens with his hands. He just has to tap the screen, or he can use the jog wheels in the back to set between each point. And basically, you're going to be able to get perfect focus every time, assuming that your actors know where they're going and your gimbal operator always remains the right distance between each focus pull. Moving right along to number 4 is the custom memory settings. Now, basically what this allows you to do is you can set up your camera to remember 5 total camera settings, everything from shutter speed, ISO, aperture, white balance, whether it's regular or custom, even down to actual menu items. It will remember everything that you have set on that memory bank. Now you might be asking yourself, well, why would I even use this? Because when we're on set, I'm just gonna turn on the camera, I'm gonna dial in the settings, and then I'll be good. And then when we go to the next set, we'll dial it in again. Yes, when you're on a feature film, that might be the case. However, if let's say you have your own YouTube network of shows, let's say First We Feast. I love First We Feast with Hot Ones. So let's say they have their interview set up, they have their kitchen setups, they have their just regular talking head setups, and those are all in 3 different spots with 3 drastically different lighting schemes, maybe even lighting color, and possibly they even use different lenses. So what this allows them to do is in those 3 situations, they can say custom memory number 1 is going to be for the interviews. So that means, hey, we're using daylight, so we need to have this custom white balance for this. And we do kind of do a little bit of a moodier light, so we need to make sure the aperture is set here and the ISO is set here. And we're also going to be running, we don't want to do second audio, so we're going to run audio straight into our cameras. So we need to make sure the audio levels are here. All those things that I'm talking about can be memorized by this bank. Now, let's just assume that First We Feast only has 2 cameras. They're not going to leave the cameras at the other sets. They're actually going to physically move them there. So at this point, when they move to the second set that's already pre-lit, all they have to do is go to custom memory bank number 2 or whichever one they set it on, and custom memory number 2 is set for that film set. So let's say that one is more next to a window. So now they got a bunch of natural light coming in, there's a whole lot going on, and they know that they're just going to use the basic daylight setting. They're not going to dial it in, so they're going to use the basic daylight setting. They're going to have a certain aperture because now they have more light to work with, and then the ISO is going to drop. And for this one, they do have some mics hanging down that's going into a recorder or a mixer, so they're like, okay, we don't really need to worry about audio levels, let's just get scratch audio. So they're going to maybe bump up the audio a little bit on the camera so they can match it up later. So you see where I'm going with this? If you are shooting very specific scenes for your own YouTube network, then having all this dialed in, ready to go, you're basically going to be set. You never have to change anything. You just have to rotate the dial and there you go. And I didn't really mention this, but you can actually even jump between 1080, 4K, C4K, or even slow motion and not slow motion. Again, everything that you need to do in terms of your film production, dial it in, have the camera memorize it, save yourself some time, and that way you can get shooting right away. And last but not least, number 5 is the 2x anamorphic shooting mode, or the open gate mode. Now, some of you might be saying, anamorphic lenses, that's just a bunch of hubbub, like, artsy fartsy people. I get it, they're very expensive and not a whole lot of people use anamorphic lenses anymore, but the option is there, and I am definitely interested in playing around with anamorphics later on. But what I'm most interested in is the open gate shooting mode. Now, if you're not familiar with what this does, what it's going to do in terms of the GH5, it's actually going to give you a video file that is way higher in resolution than C4K and UHD 4K. So what does this mean for you? Well, if you shoot open gate mode, you can kind of create a box of where your CinemaScope is within the C4K resolution or the UHD 4K resolution. And basically, if an actor gets a little overzealous during a moment, or maybe a stunt goes a little bit bigger, you're not going to lose resolution by kind of cropping in. You're actually going to just be able to move the box wherever you need it to be and basically kind of reframe and still have a nice, good, high resolution 4K. But what I'm actually even more interested in is if you're going to be creating green screen assets to fill into your overall 3D composite with green screening, using this mode is awesome. So now you're not confined to just UHD 4K resolution or C4K resolution. You can actually go beyond it. And therefore, if your character has a lot of stuff going on in costumes and hair, feather, some fine detail, you can actually get a whole lot more information for a much cleaner key. And basically, if you do a lot of green screen work, you probably should know about this mode because it'll definitely help you in getting a nice, awesome key. So what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is the waveform monitor is awesome because you can get a nice quick idea of what your shadows, your mids, and your highlight is doing, so you can make some quick adjustments to lighting to get the shots done. Not only that, if you're going to be using a whole bunch of different lenses, then you can at least match them in terms of what their light values are. So therefore, when you're in post-production, you don't really need to be fussing around too much in terms of adjusting levels. The next thing is Vectorscopes. Vectorscopes are able to check out what the color is doing into the sensor. Again, if you're gonna be trying to get the final look into the camera, it's awesome that you have this Vectorscope available. So as you're going to different cameras, again, if you're using different lenses, you might be able to kind of match them, but probably not so much. But what it really does allow you to do is if you're using color gels, bicolored LEDs, RGBW LEDs, you're going to start being able to tone in what the light is doing either to the subject or to the background. And basically you're going to start to craft your look into the camera. And again, making it less work for you to do in post-production because you already got very, very close to what it is you want. And of course, number 3 is the focus transitions. Now, racking focus is one of those things that on an indie level, you really don't have a second focus puller on his own wireless monitor that's high resolution, lag free, and basically be able to hit it every single time. So Panasonic has created this kind of alternative to focusing because fly-by-wire focus is really hard to nail the focus the exact same way every time. So they said, hey, we're going to allow you to find 3 predetermined focus points. We'll let you hit them at any order, and we'll also allow you to choose what the general speed is to rack focus between those points, either super fast or super slow. This is awesome because now as an indie filmmaker, your camera operators can now basically nail focus every time, assuming your actors understand their blocking. So this is awesome because, again, it allows you to shoot faster and it allows you to get it in less takes instead of having to wait on the camera to actually get the focus of each scene. Now, number 4, we have the awesome custom memory settings. Now, I spent the most time talking about this in the reasoning section below. Now, basically, especially for people out there that are really thinking about creating a larger YouTube channel, even if it's not that big, like I talked about First We Feast and how they have multiple different sets. But let's say you're just like me and you have, I'm shooting at a desk, teaching. Maybe I have a demo station, or maybe I have a podcast area that everything's completely different, but all the lights are set up the same. So it's awesome for me to be able to dial in every camera setting for each different set and basically just turn the dial wheel and I'm there. That's literally what I do with this because I do use this camera on different shoots. When I'm at an event, I'm definitely dialing it in. When I'm on a film set, if the director tells me, hey, we're gonna be going between 24p and 60p, and maybe we're gonna also go into the variable frame rates all the way up to, let's say, 120 frames a second in 1080. it would be a nightmare if we were jumping between all these different shots because, you know, that's how it works. And for each camera guy to have to go into their menus, switch the camera frequencies, and, you know, switch this, switch that, it would just be a nightmare. So for you to have all those different frame rates already predetermined, then all they have to do is say, hey, we're going to 60p. Okay, that means go to custom 2. All right, guys, we're going back to 24p. Go back to custom 1. All right, guys, we have a really super slow-mo shot. We need to go up to 120. All right, go to custom 3. That's how fast you can move on set. If you have these ideas already pre-planned, then before the shoot day even starts, set them up, get them ready. Get a baseline of what the ISO should be and what the white balance should be, because chances are it might change a little bit, but at least you know you can change up the frame rates very quickly without having to do a whole bunch of menu settings. And number 5, the anamorphic mode / open gate mode. I really hope one of these days that somebody, aside from SLR Magic, makes a complete set of micro four thirds anamorphic lenses, and if they are anamorphic zooms, even better. That's going to be really expensive. But anyways, the option is there if you do decide to go that route for your film. Now, the open gate is what I am really interested about, because again, if you're shooting a lot of action sequences, having open gate and having all that extra resolution for you to reframe a shot in case a stunt goes a lot more overzealous than you originally planned, that's awesome, because the last thing you want to do is make a stunt man do it many times, because injury and accidents can happen. Or if you're doing a lot of green screen work, or if you're doing anything in terms of getting reference stuff to composite later, having all that extra resolution is definitely welcome. Obviously, when we jumped from 1080 to 4K, the idea of green screening everything is, you know, awesome, because we have all that extra resolution. However, if you're doing something very complex, you definitely want to take advantage of the open gate and get even more resolution and even more detail, so that you can really get some clean keys even when the hair is waving around. And hey, that's it for this week, everybody. If anything that I said today has influence in your decision to buy a GH5 or GH5s, I would really appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. Again, this costs nothing extra to you. It just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. Now, obviously, today's video was just a very brief overview to tell you what these features are capable of, and I am, of course, going to be releasing a set of videos to teach you how to set it up and how to read it and how to use it for your film sets. So definitely like and subscribe to make sure you don't miss those videos. And hey, if you have any questions, please leave it down in the comment section below. I love talking with you guys, and I will answer them as fast as I can. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.